Hi, everyone. Welcome to OWTV. I'm back. It's me, Renanthra. Today, I have the Painkiller here with me from Nightmare. Painkiller, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. We just got into Miami at the ROK facility, and we're ready to boot camp and win these playoffs games.
I mean, that must be nice being at Miami when it's starting to get cold for the rest of the world. Are you enjoying where you at?
Oh yeah, the weather is fantastic here. 85 degrees out. Just couldn't ask for any better weather.
How long are you going to be there boot camping?
We're going to be here for the entire duration of playoffs. So from today is I think the 16th, and we're here till the 28th. So we're here for a little bit.
Oh, the 28th. Damn. Okay, that's a
Mhm.
minute. So you'll come back for Halloween, get some spooks in right before
Yeah.
right before prepping for Worlds in November. So,
Mhm.
okay, cool. Do you guys do boot camps for like every big event, or is this like a first time?
I think Nightmare does it for playoffs generally. We did it last stage when we beat SSG, and I think it really does help us as a team, like get that little extra boost of power.
Yeah, a little bit of extra sunshine before hopefully going to Stockholm, where I'm sure it's much colder. So,
Hmm.
okay, that must be nice. Today, I wanted to talk to you about the regular season and moving into playoffs plus the new patch. Obviously, there's a handful to talk about, but the game, the match with Extinction, maybe not necessarily. You guys did win 3-0 pretty convincingly there. And that was kind of a dead rubber game with no impact to the standings. I wanted to ask, I guess, for my first question, was there anything you took from that map that stood out or anything to learn from it despite being a convincing victory?
I think one thing you can take out of it is, especially against their match versus SSG, is that although the balance patch has been pretty relatively the same, like especially with the new season balance patch being, relatively small changes, people are starting to develop new ideas and new strategies. As we saw a lot of Ramatra starting to be played over the last couple of weeks, after Zarya was pretty dominant for a little bit, and people keep finding these changes throughout the meta and developments, and I think that's pretty interesting. And the longer this meta goes on, maybe something else could develop or new strategies could be unveiled in playoffs. So I like it right now. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I really like the idea that a patch isn't figured out immediately just because one team starts rolling in scrims. I was talking to Hawk just yesterday about this, but sometimes the perceived strongest comp or the meta is just based off of one really good team's performance off rip. And then over time, when people are like, oh, we can't match this, we got to kind of adapt, you start to see innovations without even patch changes, without even buffs or anything to Ramatra. He's just started to prop back up again. Hit scan started to prop back up again, which is interesting. I want to kind of see then, now that the regular season has ended, were you happy with your run? Were you kind of, do you feel good about kind of your performance over the course of those 6 weeks?
I think given the difficulty of our schedule and the situation with our team, having to pick up two or three new players at the start of the stage and then instantly hit with the two hard matches. I know I've said it before, but it really is just a difficult situation for us as a team. And like the best thing we can do is just power through. If you look at the rest of the matches we had, Team Z, we didn't lose a map, and Extinction, we didn't lose a map to Secura, we didn't lose a map to, compared to Team Liquid, lost a map to Secura, SSG won map 5 versus Extinction, and we're able to hold strong versus those teams that are still like have good players and still are able to punch up on match day. And I think it's a testament to showing though how we weren't able to lose a map to any of them, even though we did lose all to the top teams. You know, it was just a rough situation, and we're really looking to show how strong we are in playoffs.
Yeah, that run of schedule for you guys was probably the hardest of every team. If I had to kind of think about it like really quickly, um, I mean, talking to some of the other top teams in the region, they have talked about difficulties of kind of staying on their A game when playing against the lower echelon. Some teams I do think get a little complacent and stuff like that, but Nightmare has been very consistent, as you said, not dropping those maps against the bottom four. Why do you think that is? Do you think your culture is maybe different? How do you guys approach playing a top team as opposed to like a bottom team?
Well, we kind of have a similar mentality. We never like me as a player. I'm a recently new player, and I'm growing around a lot of these players that are also on these bottom four teams, and I know them. I've played against them, scrimmed against them, lost to them in previous teams, and it really is just like you never want to just let your guard down on a match when you know that they have skilled talent and they can easily just punch up. And it's really important to always be prepared and always be giving it your all, even if it's, not a match that matters like Extinction. It doesn't change our standing, doesn't change their standing, but it's still we still want to represent and show that we are a strong team. We don't want to go map 5 versus Extinction the last regular game of the season, then go into playoffs and everyone's, oh, they went map 5 versus the 7th place team, and it's like it's a little different. They are talented players, but again, like we're trying really really hard to show off like the best we can, considering the first 3 matches we had were really difficult for us, and we couldn't really show off what we wanted to. We just wanted to make sure that people still saw the talent in our team against those other teams.
I love that attitude. And yeah, I did pick up the little SSG shade a little bit there, going to map 5 against Extinction for sure. You're like, yeah, that we would never, but
No, never.
I do kind of want to talk about the idea of, so you have been around the block, not as long as some of these other veteran players, like for example, Hawk, since we're on the topic of Space Station. I do think if you watch the interviews, I talked to him yesterday and that video came out, and he talked a bit about the newer wave of players obviously are super, super driven, but he does in this clip mentions that generally the skill disparity that exists now is like closer. He thinks like the average player has gotten better, but the peaks on maybe the ceilings of play aren't necessarily as high as when they were kind of in the Overwatch League. And that's a very interesting topic. I think I wanted to pick your brain on it as, kind of someone that directly fits that caricature. You're kind of new on the block. Like you mentioned, you do play tank as well, and you are putting up big numbers. But what are your thoughts on kind of his ideas that maybe players in North America aren't as good as they used to be?
I think about it sometimes. And I think about, when I VOD myself or I VOD other teams and scrims, and I'm looking like, I like if I'm losing, I'm like, oh, what is their tank doing that I'm not? And sometimes it's really like it's hard to really tell. And a lot of tank decisions in 5v5 format comes down to game understanding and decision making. So even if it's you feel like a low skill ceiling tank like Mauga, like there's still a lot of decision making. Like there's a reason that like top Korean teams are always still dominating on those comps, is that at the end of the day, the mechanics might not matter too much, but you need the game thinking and the thought process to be able to carry you throughout those games. I think it's pretty interesting right now as far as the tanks and it's the first time in a while that we've had, in the top 4 teams, you have 2 Offtank players and 2 Maintank players. So you have Infected Cuppa versus, me and Hawk. And I really like that. I think it's a nice, nice change of pace from, always having, I think of when I was on Rad in stage 1 and it was, 5 Maintank players. And then I was like sort of the only Offtank / hazard person. And it was really difficult to try to find a niche or find a strategy that worked. And then in stage 2, it was a dominant like ground tank meta, and that's where I thrive. But now that it's in this format and there's 2 off tank teams, it really lets the niche of off tank, Diva and Hazard and Zarya comps, like it really lets you find the creativity in those comps and find outcomes where you can beat the main tank teams, even if Ball and Winston have been pretty dominant this stage. You see a lot of SSG playing a lot of Zarya, and I think that's a key takeaway from the regular season as well, is that even if it looks like the main tank teams are dominating, like if you're a talented enough team and you have parts that work really well together, you can make any comp work.
So I guess what you're trying to say a little bit is like the skill expression for a tank right now might look just a little different than what it did in 6v6. Like maybe it's harder to compare because it is like a different game, and what makes you good now is different than maybe what would make you look good before. Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting, actually. I hadn't put it together myself that we had 2 flex tanks players and 2 main tank players in playoffs to see that like stylistic difference. Do you think that certain like either main tanks or off tanks have an advantage going into playoffs?
Right now, I would probably say main tanks have a pretty big advantage. If you look at the map pool, if you're looking at our match like Team Liquid, it's like what stops them from, if in a map 5 scenario, map 1 they go Ilios, hard dive map. Map 2, it's a ground tank, they lose. Map 3 they pick New Queen Street, another like main tank dive map, and then later on the series map 5 they pick something like Gibraltar. They pick 3 dive maps where main tanks is really, really dominant and normally, destroys off tanks. And, in a long-term series, you have to be thinking about that and thinking about how, what can you do to stop them from just going to 3 dive maps and guaranteeing 3 map wins in a map 5 series. So I think it is really helpful to have another Offtank team and be able to not steal ideas, but get ideas and have creative juices flowing throughout the scene. And I really do like it right now. And I do think main tanks do have a bit of an advantage right now, but like SSG, they did get second seed, so that goes to show that they have a niche that works, and if we can find our niche, we can also beat the main tank teams.
Yeah, it's doable. And evidently, it seems like you've done your homework. You're thinking of the map pool in advance, even though that has changed. And I guess like it's also interesting because you are one of the, I think you might be the only team that splits tank playtime with Rhino on the roster as well to give you that extra edge and preparation and potential surprises. That kind of leads me to my next question. Are you and Nightmare preparing any differently now that it's playoff time or getting something maybe special ready for playoffs?
I mean, for us, it's more so just trying to cover all our bases. Like I was saying, if they go map one Ilios and they do something easy like a Diva ban onto me, it's really leaves us in a hole where maybe I can play Hazard, but then we're playing versus Ball or Winston and Ana, and
It's tough.
it's really uncomfortable for us. So maybe we'll throw out special strategies on match day. Throw them off guard if we need to get those map wins and. Because we're in the upper bracket, we only need one match win
Yeah, then
to
you're Stockholm.
make it to Stockholm, and then you got to win 2 in lower bracket. So for us, I think realistically, we want to beat Liquid, and if we don't, we need to be able to beat one of the other top 4 teams. And for us, it's sort of like if we can't beat 2 of the top 4 teams, then like why are we here? Or like why would we think we can even go to Stockholm? So in my mind, like for me as a player, like I need to be able to beat at least one of those teams to like prove myself and show that we are a strong team and we deserve to go to Stockholm.
Yeah, very measurable goals for you and the rest of the boys here. And coming from upper bracket, I think if you were to lose the Liquid, you'd play Sakura next, which I think we'll talk about a bit in the interview. But that's awesome. Like playoffs is going to be very interesting also because we are on the season 19 patch. It's spooky season. You got the Halloween event and things like that. But as far as balance goes, there weren't a ton of super sizable changes, at least not at a glance. I think Mauga was a big one. Reaper changes a little bit. Wuyang got a 25 HP nerf, a couple of other small things there. What are your initial thoughts on the patch? Like, do you expect to see much change in our professional metagame?
I really don't expect too much to be changed. It seems like a little bit of a problem with how the last couple of balance patches have been going out is, you have all these new perks, and some perks are obviously going to be better than others. But that still doesn't undermine like neutral fights for tanks. Like, if you're playing Zarya versus Winston, it's always going to be a hard matchup. It doesn't really matter what perks get changed. Or, if you're playing Zarya versus Ramattra now. But I think the problem that they tried to do for this season 19 balance patch was, besides nerfing Wu Ying's numbers, is trying to just tweak the perks and try to balance the perks a little. And in pro play, it really doesn't end up changing too much unless
Yeah,
they
at least until much
add,
later.
yeah,
Yeah.
until they add something that is either a game breaking perk or a perk that's useless. Like only things like that can really change. And if they keep going with the style, it's going to be like what I was saying earlier. It's going to be a little difficult to see change in pro play besides small developments over long periods of time. Like I was saying earlier with the Ramattra, a lot of Zarya was being played, a lot of Winston was being played, and then Ramattra starts getting played, and now Ramattra is a key tank in the metagame right now. So the way I see it is that the bounce patch doesn't really change too much, and if we want to see big changes, going into playoffs, the balance patch needs to be more heavy, more nerfs. I would say buffs aren't really required right now. Just I like to see nerfs onto a lot of heroes, and that could really shake up and leave you open to playing a lot of different new things.
So I have I guess, jumping off question related to that. That's not on my preset list of questions. But I am super interested in that philosophy. I think some game titles definitely do that whole like aggressive 2-week patch cycle. And if something's broken, get it out of here. It's not fresh anymore. You want to kind of change things almost by force. And Overwatch has had some big patches like that where they're like, okay, where it's time for a radical change. And then some patches like this where it's like, smaller and kind of seeing where people kind of naturally gravitate to and how things develop. Are you a fan of seeing a developer approach the game with, we're going to change things up and we're going to make it so you have to adapt all the time and keep you guessing and kind of keep that chaotic feel? Or do you kind of like more small progressive patches like this where people naturally kind of have to dig in and over time unravel kind of the layers and what's good and strong?
It's very interesting to think about because I do like how, developments can be made over a metagame that's been pretty stagnant as far as balance. But sometimes I would like to see more aggressive changes. Like I know people have been pretty upset with the state of Symmetra for a long time in pro play recently, ever since her teleporter got reworked, and it's a lot of talk about how the hero really hasn't been hit too hard as far as nerfs go, and it's really always going to be there. It's a big reason why you see Ramattra right now instead of Orisa for say, because Orisa has just such an impossible matchup into something like Symmetra that it's the reason why you never see it. And it's like that for a lot of tanks right now, or just a lot of heroes in general, where it's just like big example is also a hit scan like Ashe. Ashe has not seen any real time this year, and a lot of it that has to do with her perks, but also her game state as a hero is not that strong right now. She loses duels to Hanzo, to Cass, to Sojourn, to Freya, and she really needs some love that I don't think perks can fix. I think we need to see more aggressive changes to something like that, where maybe buffer HP to 275 or buffer fall off damage. It doesn't have to be that exactly, but you get the idea of she needs number tweaks on her hero, not just a new perk or a couple new changes to her perks. So I would like to see heroes that haven't been like I was saying earlier, like Junker Queen. Junker Queen hasn't been really a dominant hero in the metagame since Stockholm last year when NRG played it as an anti-comp to the Mauga. But I would like to see heroes like that get some love every now and then, whether that's a new perk that's strong that really helps change her neutrals. Like the Junker Queen doesn't really have really good major perks that change her in mid fights or anything like that. But just I would be looking forward to more aggressive changes that just help shake up the metagame. It's been Lucio Kiri for a little while now, this stage, and
Since Overwatch 2 came out, pretty much.
Since Overwatch 2 came out, it's
Yeah.
been Lucio Kiri for this year, and then you saw Juno Brig for 6 months. Last stage I did like because there was a lot of variety. You had Lucio Kiri, Bap Brig, Lucio Bap, and it feels like this stage there isn't really too much of that. You have a little bit of Wu Ying Kiriko, Wu Ying Lucio, but those are also just because of power creep. Like you can't really play Baptiste into Lucio Wu Ying. There's just too much spam damage. They're too mobile, and things like that. I would like to see shaken up.
No, I mean, first of all, I totally agree. I'm of the opinion that if I start seeing the exact same heroes played for like longer than 2 months, it's probably a good sign that like we should hit something, if not just for the sake of like a breath of fresh air, and then we can kind of see if this new path forward is healthy or not. I'm okay with developers taking chances and stuff like that. I do think we've been maybe a little risk adverse to making characters too strong lately, which I think people have their own opinions about. But secondly, I know you want a Junker Queen like patch because that is like one of your best heroes. I think I remember you put out like a clip dump or a montage, and there's like a clip of Infected saying like, "I'm gonna be honest right now, Infected or Painkiller's just sending me to another dimension or something. He's just too good at Queen."
And
so,
the funniest part about that too, that's from maybe over a year ago. So compared to how I was as a player a year ago to now, like that's just sitting in the pocket waiting for
for rainy day.
Me and Hawk to go against Infected Cuffin, like a one of those mechanic centralized tanks like Junker Queen. You saw a little bit of Zarya, but it wasn't strong enough to always beat the main tanks. But I would like to see a little bit more variety as far as that goes.
I mean, see, what you got to do is you got to go to Stockholm. We got to make it there, do well, and then finals you got to pay Blizzard to make it a Junker Queen patch.
Yeah,
and then we're set. And then
we're set.
Then North America wins their first World Final in a while. So, okay, very nice. Kind of on the same topic of patch, I want to ask a couple more questions there. I guess preparation-wise, I mean, you've mentioned a bit that you don't think too much has changed, but is there like an inkling? Could you give us maybe a hint? Do you see the metagame shifting whatsoever at all? And if so, like, are you happy with kind of the direction of steering as far as your team's chances of success in playoffs?
For us, we've had a couple of triple blocks for the last couple of days. So, we're getting in the scrim lobbies, we're getting the new experience on this scrim patch, and for us, it really doesn't feel like too much has changed. There wasn't really like any essential changes to, you think of dominant heroes in the meta right now. Right now, I would say it's a lot of Freya, Lucio Kiri, and then you have, Maintank versus Offtank, and it feels like, the main components of all those comps of Lucio, Kiri, Winston Ball, Diva, for example, and even Zarya didn't get any changes at all, or even like a DPS passive onto tanks or DPS passive or anything like that. Like nothing essential like that was changed that could really end up even shaking the metagame. A couple small numbers like they changed for, I know in the tanks they changed the Junker Queen minor perk, but
Ball got
that's
an adaptive barrier
Ball got an
change,
adaptive barrier
small stuff.
change,
Yeah.
small stuff like that. Really doesn't end up changing much as far as the pro play scene goes and how in scrims works out. But just getting the experience in the scrim lobbies, even if it's not too much has changed, it really does help us. Like we've had two EU blocks in the last couple of days, and even if we're losing to them, it is still an experience for us to take away something that what are they doing different. Like a lot of EU is also off tank, so it's like, okay, we're losing. If we're one day we're beating SSG in scrim, and then the next day we lost to Twisted Minds in scrim, it's like, what's going on here? What are they doing different that we should take away?
Noted. Okay, cool. Interesting. I mean, I've always liked personally to see like towards the end of playoffs, it not change too much because I think some people get upset, validly so, like when a team just gets granted like a perfect patch for them on the most consequential time of year. So I do kind of like to see smaller things addressed and seeing the teams show who's the most polished and mastered a really like a important patch to win it all. So I'm a fan of kind of what I'm hearing so far. But if Falcons whips out Mauga and goes crazy, then we know who paid off who. Okay, well, let's talk about those incoming matches then. Team Liquid is obviously up to bat. You guys are in that upper bracket. One win sends you right to Stockholm, and yeah, Liquid chose to play you guys, which I guess is not necessarily a surprise, just kind of given the current ladder of rankings. What are your thoughts going into this game with Liquid? Are you guys feeling good about their pick? Are you preparing for them differently? Kind of what's the expectation going into this match?
For us, it's comfortable. Like I was saying earlier, you now that you have two off-tank teams, two main-tank teams, and you have Liquid versus Nightmare and Geeky versus SSG, I think those are both really interesting matchups to show, which team has the edge over the other composition. Like I was saying earlier, if Liquid's looking at this as a long-term map 5, they could just hard force the dive maps and try to make us as uncomfortable as possible and get us off of our ground tanks and off tanks. But we have obviously we have strategies against that, and to try to measure that down and have some sort of counterplay to that. And I'm sure SSG has a similar style as well, to where they're going to have some strats against Geek. And I'm just really excited for these playoffs games. I think we can really do great. I know last stage we also had the Liquid game in the upper bracket we lost, but I think it was a really dominant meta for them at that time. It was a Orisa, Cass, Breakbap meta, and they were just so dominant that it was hard for us. But this stage, I feel like the patch has been, like I was saying, not too many changes. So it's been the same patch for a while. So if we're losing, it's just on us because we've had the time to prepare. It's not like they found the best comp right away and they had more practice on it. It's just we've been playing the same patch pretty much, and it's just down to us, and it's down to Liquid as well to see who has the better comps on match day.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, this idea of that like there's a war of styles kind of going on in the background in preparation. It's just super cool. I just finished talking to Seiko actually on Twisted Minds. So they mentioned like when they played in SEL and they played Al Katia, that they, instead of playing their game, they just played specifically to counter their comp. So I think it's super cool to see how the teams and coaches are preparing. Like some are just, we're going to hone in our style. If it's dive, if we get enough maps in, we should win. Versus, okay, we're going to play a totally different style. Maybe have some pocket counters in preparation for that. So yeah, these next 3 weeks are going to be really, really interesting. Just seeing how everything pans out.
Yeah, and I will comment on that too, because in scrims, Team Liquid is a team that sometimes they stray a little too far away from their own style. Sometimes if they play a comp and we lose, we switch to mirror their comp and we win a fight, they'll switch to a counter comp when we wanted to play the mirror, So they
Mm.
they sometimes stray a little too far away from the idea of like they just should be sticking to their style and playing the comps that they are good at. Not to say that they're bad when they switch off those comps, but more so just they're strong on certain comps for a reason, and it would help if they stay to that. So in playoffs, if you see the matchups, don't be too surprised if you see them, switching a lot. If we somehow ended up in a Rissamir, you might see them pick the Symmetra first. Maybe I switch to Sigma and then they switch back to Ramach. I think Liquid is a team that has a lot of counter swapping in their playbook. So I would love to see how that turns out on match day and if they stick to that strat.
Yeah, leading into flexibility and always kind of having that small advantage versus really mastering and going hard in on one is, that ideological battle is super, super interesting. All right, well, knowing that a win here qualifies you for Stockholm and all these upcoming games will be high pressure, Painkiller, I wanted to ask, how do you think your team copes with being in these high stakes scenarios?
I think we've been doing pretty well lately, and as a team, we've been just spending a lot of time together. We're not all familiar with each other. Seeker, Squid, and NY all joined the roster this stage. So, for me at least as a player, I feel like it's super important and critical as a team. You spending time with your teammates. Some teams really don't spend that much time with your team, and it ends up hurting them on match day because they're not trusting each other. I really like the environment of, especially last stage on Nightmare, is just everyone's playing ranked together, everyone's hanging out together, playing party games, just talking to each other and getting to really know each other as people. I think that really just is a big, big part of being on a team and being at the highest level is, at the end of the day, you have to trust your teammates and you have to listen to your teammates. And if you don't really know them, you're not really trusting them, it's not going to look good for you on match day. So for us, like a big thing is just, yeah, we are the fourth place team right now. Yeah, we got last stage two of our players, SSG picked them up, and we had to fill the holes. But for us, that's fine. We like the difficulty, we like the pressure, and for us, it's no pressure at all. We're the fourth place team. We're not expected to make the land right now. Everyone's thinking, obviously it's going to be SSG, Geek, and Liquid, and we're just here to trump that, and we're here to just show that it's not just all flat out on paper that these three teams are going to land. Just like we did last stage, we 3-0'd SSG in the lower bracket. This time it would be nice if we did that in the upper bracket, though. Got a nice win versus Liquid. So that's really what we're looking forward to, is just winning in the upper bracket and just proving right away that we can just do it.
Yeah, no, that resonates with me really strongly. I think like when I was coaching, my philosophy was just like, yeah, trust is number one. And like the most important thing you can do that, like even beyond scrims, even before VODs and stuff like that, is like just go out and spend some time with each other. Get lunch. Lunch is overpowered and how much it could really buff a team, surprisingly. But getting that kind of just camaraderie going, that friendliness, that feeling of family really goes a long way. So on one hand, I'm super happy to hear that. Nightmare always finds a way somehow, despite getting poached endlessly. But on the other hand, the fact that you guys play together so much in my ranked games means I always lose. So part of me is like, maybe stop, maybe do a little less. I'll forgive you for this time of year because there's stakes involved. But like regular season, if I run team in a duo and I'm on the other side of the lobby, I'm like, guys, it's a long day. This is a tough app. Okay, well, I only have a couple more questions left for you, Painkiller. I do want to ask, fingers crossed that this does not happen, but in the event that you guys do drop the Liquid match, you get sent to lowers and you have a second chance to run it back. You will play Sakura then on Sunday. Is there much concern about going into lower bracket and playing like a bottom four team? Like, do you care at all that Sakura is kind of like there, or is that matchup just kind of like, we are not worried whatsoever, we're eyes on the prize with the bigger team right now?
I said this earlier about how we dealt with the lower games in the regular season, and it's never something you can just look past. If you look back at our last playoffs, we did go map 5 versus Extinction in the lower bracket. We didn't do a lot of prep. We didn't really take them too seriously, and look where that had us. We had us in a map 5 where we could have maybe just lost, and then a different world where SSG made it to midseason. And for us, Sakura is I think they got 5th place. They beat all the other teams and in the lowers, and they have a bunch of talented players. Zamba, Zeb, Z, and X10, I think, are just amazing players mechanically, and they played on teams together before, and they're really just not a team you can look past. I think it is a bit of a unfortunate meta, I would say, for their team. Just you think of their tank Zeb, and so dominant we saw in 2024 on Orisa, and getting a lot of upsets and almost making it to the last lane of the year through circuit points. But I think it is just like an unfortunate situation for them that, I think they were relying a little bit on the balance patch to be changed more aggressively, and it didn't end up getting changed too hard for them. But it's not just a match we're just going to look past. We're not looking to go, map 5 or lose the match and then we're down out there in the lower bracket. Our eyes are set on land, but every step of the way there is going to be calculated for us. And if we lose, then that's just on us. We didn't prepare hard enough. We didn't work hard enough.
I love that answer. Yeah, humble and insightful, and honestly, you have great memory. And shout outs to Zeb. Like, kudos there. If the Orisa ever comes back, then that'd be great for that team. But I think, yeah, obviously we mentioned this earlier, but flexibility is a key component right now, and being able to, I guess, adjust to the meta that's still kind of developing and will change looks over time. Players are always going to be, and teams as a whole are going to be at the mercy of patch changes, no matter what. And there's a bit of a dice roll there. So no matter what, it's about who shows up on game day. And I think Nightmare, with you on the team and having heard all your answers today, is in good hands. For all the fans watching you today and our Nightmare fans and cheering you guys on, do you have a message for them?
I just want to say, look out for us in these playoffs. We really do appreciate the support. When I think about the support that I got at the Midseason Madness when we beat Twisted Minds the first time, and just insane memories and insane things to think about. And we don't want to let you guys down, and we want to show off the best that we can and show off how we do in scrims, while in compared to the matches we didn't get the results we wanted. But we really want to show up here in this playoffs.
All right, well, there you have it. So if you are a fan of Nightmare and of Painkiller, you can follow them on the socials found in the overlay. While you're on Twitter, I always say this, but you can throw one my way. And definitely follow OWTV for more interviews just like this. Painkiller, it's been so nice talking to you. I loved all your answers, and we'll be cheering for you in playoffs. For everyone watching, please check out our next interview too. And if you want to follow more, check out the channel and catch our opinions with some other of the fantastic players out there as well. So it's been me. I've been Renanthra. That's Painkiller. We're OWTV. And that's it for us today. See you later.